Witness the colossal boxing showdown nobody expected, live on Netflix. International superstar Jake Paul, the sport's most watched fighter, takes on Britain's two-time unified heavyweight world champion and Olympic gold medalist, Anthony A.J. Joshua, in the most dangerous and defining matchup of their careers. This is Judgment Day. Watch Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on Netflix.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Hello everyone, Chris here. Just a quick reminder that this episode of How We're the Podcast is sponsored by LifeScoreBet, a proud principal partner of Sunderland AFC. And if you're looking to get started, they've got a cracking welcome offer for new customers. Bet £10 on sports and get £30 in free bets. Simple as that. So if you're ready to join the action, make sure you're doing it with LifeScoreBet, the home of total betting. New members only. Bet more than £10 on sports within 14 days. Free bets valid 7 days. £20 to use on Sportsbook. £10 on Bet Builder. Terms and conditions and deposit exclusions apply. Please bet responsibly and remember, over 18s only. And now, cue the music. Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast, sponsored by LifeScoreBet, as you join us for our final match day preview before Christmas. But to be fair, I think Santa came early for most Sunderland fans as he delivered a victory over the visitors last week. But as much as we don't want to be greedy, taking 3 points on the South Coast against Brighton today would help us all to enjoy our Christmas dinner and whatever else we want to gorge ourselves on over the coming days a little bit easier. So, to talk about what our chances are of coming away with a victory against Brighton, I'm very glad to have the company of two gentlemen who have both been voices on How We're the Podcast this week, celebrating last week's win. So first up, we have Andrew Smithson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Chris. Hello, everyone. Yes, we've already had a visit from old Saint Nick, but he's going to be coming back in the next couple of days, hopefully.
That's it. I feel a bit greedy after taking last week's as a Christmas present, but are you ready for Christmas? Just a few days to go? Because just chasing my tail, if I'm honest, mate.
Yeah, like you, there's a few last minute things still need sorting. So pretty much as soon as we've finished recording this, I'm back out into town to get a few more jobs ticked off the list.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to my oldest yesterday, my lad, and we got talking, and he was going about looking forward to Christmas, and I just kind of naturally said it. I just went, "Oh yeah. I used to really look forward to Christmas." And he went, "What do you mean, used to look forward to Christmas?" I says, and then I just realised kind of what I'd said. I was like, "Well, yeah." I went, I remember when I was a kid and just had nothing else to worry about, and now, bloody hell, it just seems like a list of jobs now, doesn't it, Andrew?
Oh, it is, and we're at a point now where it's looking as if some of the things we've ordered aren't going to arrive in time. So I've now got to buy like backup gifts just in case. So it's not just the first list that needs ticking off. It's the emergency list needs sorting as well. And there's other bits and bobs. And do you buy a gift for your mum and dad's dog, or is that overkill? There's all these things to sort, man. It's this is why I'm happy you're talking about football. It's a lot more straightforward talking about Sunderland.
Well, exactly. Well, I'll put those humbugs away. But also joining us, we have one of them again, another voice, and one of the many voices actually who talked at the same time in a bar after the game last week to produce an absolutely brilliant reaction podcast. I think I said the other day, never has a pod been so incoherent, but made more sense because I'm very pleased to say we have Michael with us. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Chris. It's good to be back on. Maybe a little more sober, and there won't be any swearing from me today. I promise. So,
Have you ever
have a
been
good one.
involved in a better podcast than that, mate?
It was such good crack. Yeah. I'm actually. It felt like we were there for 40 minutes, and I listened to it back. It was only 15 minutes long, but yeah, everyone was just trying to shout over each other. But it was great crack. It was good to see everyone in such good form as well. That's what it's all
Yeah.
about.
You know what? I was like one of our listeners, just listening into it, and you know what? You just listened, and you just wanted to be there. You just wanted to be soaking it in like everyone else. I mean, soaking it in every way possible. By the way,
It was funny.
I think
We were sitting in the back of the Hilton Hotel on a garden bench, and we're like three of us either side of it. We were actually jumping over each other, trying to just get to the microphone with Gav's phone just to talk quicker. So yeah, I'd say
abs-
all of us had a bit of fear the next day listening back to it.
yeah, absolutely brilliant. I think I got drunk through osmosis just listening. But you all prepared for Christmas, Michael?
Yeah, I was just telling you there now. I'm obviously a teacher over here in Ireland, and we got our holidays today. So now I'm off until the 5th of January. So no complaints from me. A nice 2-week break. So I do have a few more gifts to get done. But tonight, after this podcast, it's just going to the pub for the day. So yeah, can't complain too much.
Makes you sick, doesn't it, Andrew? Listen to these teachers, all this time off doing absolutely nothing. Anyway, but anyway, let's before we get into the meat of the game today, I want to go through a few things that came out of the press conference on Thursday to start with, and then we'll circle back to team news that came out of that press conference as well. But the first one I wanted to talk about was listening to Register Bruce and hearing him respond to Jacques' comments that he hadn't seen the manager so emotional since he came to the club. Obviously then after the win against the visitors last week, he got rather, G'd up and emotional. And he responded by saying he felt the energy of the stadium and, that he really felt it. And he said the whole club felt it in terms of the players and the staff. He said it was really important that they enjoyed it. And Andrew, we've talked about how we think Xhaka is surprised how much the club has got under his skin. But I get the impression with the type of character the manager is that even Register Briss is really surprised himself how emotional he's got in moments like that.
Yeah, there's been a couple of hints now, hasn't there? Just for a couple of seconds on the touchline, he's let himself go. I'm thinking the Ballard goal, and yeah, there was a couple of suggestions there on Sunday that he's falling in love with us. But then he suddenly snaps out of it, doesn't he? And then he goes back to the usual Regis Labris and thinks, right, there's a job to do. But I mean, look at us. We record a podcast every single day talking about this club. There is a city out there where everybody wears red and white. Everybody knows what's happening at the club. It's no surprise that individuals come and work here, and then it just starts seeping into them. And before they know it, Labris will be talking about pink slices and all that soon enough. He's becoming an adopted Mackham. But it's exactly what you need. He's got his head screwed on. He's keen to do well for himself. But if he's also getting a bit of affection for the team as well and has that extra reason to do well, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's it. And just on that theme, Michael, because he was also asked about how he celebrated, and he said, well, he slept because he was tired. But then it's funny because, as Andrew said, this kind of big grin came on his face because he said he went straight into analysing the game and looked at the negatives from that game, even though we just all saw the positives, with the fact that we beat the visitors. But I'm not sure about you, Michael, but I just love having a manager who is kind of analytical like that in terms of, we feel all the emotion, but he kind of celebrates a little bit and then goes, right, now I need to really analyse and take a look at it.
Yeah, he's a bit of a football nerd, isn't he? I'd say he just never sleeps. He's always thinking about something. You can just see it in him. But I suppose that's why he gets paid the big bucks. We're allowed to celebrate, and he knows straight away, get the lads back for the Brighton game the next week. Yeah, as I said, I'd say he just never stops thinking about football. But you can see just what Andrew's saying, that you can see that he's getting more and more invested in the club. And I think, coming back to what we were saying there, I like, even for myself, the build up to the Newcastle game there last week, it's probably very hard for him to sort of get disconnected from it because there was so much going on in the media and everything that it was very difficult to sort of separate it. And then it seemed to me that instead of kind of using it as a fear, they always say play the game, not the occasion. I think he let the players sort of play the occasion as well and embrace maybe the atmosphere that was coming with the match and the build up through the week. So even a man like him who's sort of very analytical, he kind of let a bit of that come into the occasion, which was probably what was needed as well.
Yeah. And if he was analysing it, and taking that emotion out of it, Andrew, what will he have seen? What will he have taken from going back and analysing that performance?
That we are capable of giving anybody a match at the Stadium of Light. We are rock solid defensively. Newcastle, if you forget the fact that they're 10 miles up the road, are an established Premier League club who for the last couple of years have produced some really handy results. So the fact that we barely looked to be under any sort of real trouble from them is really impressive. And at the risk of sounding, again, greedy, about how we're greedy and we want more points, at the risk of sounding greedy, is there more to come in an attacking sense, particularly at home? Could we maybe create a few more chances? Listen, I'm not complaining. I'm over the moon with how the club are going. But if I was being analytical and seeing where this team can improve, that would be the part of the side that I think could get even better.
Yeah. I always remember an interview with Noel Gallagher early in the Oasis days, and people were like, are you happy or something like that? And he was like, I'm part of the biggest rock band in the world. I'm a millionaire. I've just been bought a Rolls Royce. I'm nearly on the board at Manchester United. He's like, am I happy? But no, I'm not. I want more. You can kind of feel like that as a Sunderland fan at the minute. But Michael, just on that again, just looking at that Newcastle game, because he's going to go into it to the nth degree and look into every little aspect of that game. We get caught up in it. We won 1-0. There was a lot of talk after the game about it not being particularly good technically, but having that feel of a derby and a massive cup tie, and that the challenges were flying in and all that. So, what do you think he'll have taken from it when he watches it back?
Yeah, kind of echo what Andrew said there. I think one of the issue people say is the attacking play, and we probably need to work on it. Is you look at it as we need to put maybe a more creative midfielder in at times alongside Xhaka and stuff. But there's plenty of positives to take. I mean, I don't think anyone can kind of look back at that game with any sort of negative outlook. We were just fantastic throughout the whole game. People are giving out about the attacking side, as you're saying there. Like, we did score 3 against Bournemouth only a couple of weeks ago. We got 2 against Arsenal, 2 against Wolves already at home this season, 3 against West Ham. So it's not like we're not creating chances. It's a derby. It's an occasion like that where it's going to be a bit of nip and tuck. There was a lot of sort of tackles going in. Never really got into a flow of a game. So I wouldn't really be judging that performance as an isolated sort of incident. You might be looking over the last 5 or 6 games and seeing how we're getting on, and the attacking play hasn't been that bad, I don't think, overall.
Yeah. And just before we leave last week, because I think we did kind of call it a bit of a line in the sand, Andrew. Like, it felt like a big kind of, a symbolic win, as I kept kind of putting it last week. But I noticed Kira Louis-Dreyfus celebrated his 28th birthday this week. And and it's amazing when I thought about that. I mean, God, for a start, it makes me feel bloody old. But the other thing is, you think I haven't really looked at the exact dates, but I'm sure let's say it's around 5 years since he came to the club. Let's say he was 22, 23, whatever it is when he first came to the club. I can't remember most of my 20s, I have to admit. And he spent his 20s building up our club, taking us from League One to the Premier League. And, who knows where it might go from here. But, people might say the best years of your life or whatever. He spent them building up Sunderland FC.
He has. I mean, when's he going to stop messing about with football and get himself a proper job? That's what I wonder. Yeah, I noticed it was his birthday, and it is quite sobering when you see that he's not even in his 30s yet. But maybe that's one of
Stop
the
it.
things.
Stop saying
Maybe that's one of the things that is helping the culture at the club, because he's got his head screwed on and he has actually been around football for a long time. He's done, I think he even studied at university, football administration. I could have made that up. Don't quote me on that.
I think you're right, because didn't he end up at Leeds or something at some point when he was studying?
Yeah. So he's always had this in mind, and it's clearly not just something he's woke up one morning and thought, I'll buy a football club, that'll be a laugh. But the fact that he's young as well, I think contributes to a lot of the things Sunderland are trying to do. We aren't just using the same old tired recruitment methods and the same old tired ways of running a football club. We're trying to do everything with a bit of a new slant and just looking at it from a different point of view. The whole club are getting envious looks from other fans saying, why can't we do it how Sunderland do it? Well, probably because we've got a young lad at the very top making the calls instead of some has-been who is used to doing things differently. I do think his age is a factor, but as I say, we've not seen any signs of immaturity from him either. So he is getting the balance right.
Yeah. Of course, we do wish him a happy birthday. I hope he had a good one. I'm sure with the Newcastle win helped Michael. But like I said, I mean, bloody hell, he's part of a wealthy family, young lad, and all this sort of stuff. And here he is at our club, building us from almost, let's say rock bottom. Let's call it what it is. That was the club's worst time in our history, and now we're fingers crossed, we're looking towards possibly our best period since. I don't even want to say it. Could back Bank of England team or pre-war or whenever.
Yeah, and one thing I kind of was thinking there when we were talking, if you compare this Newcastle game to the FA Cup game a couple of years ago and the build-up and everything the club put out on the kind of the socials and everything, it's chalk and cheese. I mean, obviously the mess that what happened in the build-up to the FA Cup game in the Black Cats bar and until now, and the tifos and everything that were going around the stadium. And the media, social media stuff, like he kind of has the final say, I'd say, on everything that happens there, and the people he brings in to do the jobs. It's just, you can see how the club has grown, even comparing the two games under his stewardship. It's just amazing. I just hope he stays for a lot longer, and I just doesn't get sick of it anytime soon.
Yeah. We'll see if there's any big bids who want the club now he's getting in this position. But going back to that press conference, Andrew, Andy Sixsmith, a good friend of the podcast, asked him about the club constantly proving people wrong, whether it's the fixture list being kind or the fact people thought we'd just go down in the first place or we'd fall apart in December or during AFCON or whatever it's been. It was interesting, his response. He said it's fragile because there's always a new story for every game. But I love the end of his reply when he said that him and the squad just love new challenges. But it does feel like, they've built up to every single fixture this season. Like, he keeps saying it's a new story, it's a new challenge. I don't think that they're looking at groups of games or whatever. They're just saying, right, we've got Brighton this week. That's all we're focusing on.
Yeah, they are. They're focusing on what they can deal with now. And then when other matters arise, they'll deal with it then. I think over the last couple of years, we've been really good at this as a group. There was a lot of people saying when we got promoted from League One, that squad will not make it in the Championship. Well, they did. There was lots and lots of times when we were predicted to struggle and, you can't keep just playing all these young bands and expecting them to step up. Well, they did. And yeah, again, we've come into the Premier League. The predictions were grim, but we put all of that noise to one side and just got on with the job in hand. It's a really big strength of ours, both on the pitch and off it. You asked me earlier, Chris, what can Lebris take from the Newcastle game? Another thing he can take is this team will not wilt in any situation. How many times in the past have we seen a Sunderland team and said something like they struggle in front of a big crowd or they can't cope with the atmosphere of a certain type of game? There's no doubts about that anymore. We turn up every single time. And if we lose, it's because we haven't been quite good enough in pure footballing terms, not because we've panicked or I shouldn't really say this now. I know you're a teacher, Michael, but when was the last time Sunderland shit the bed? In seriousness, when was the last time anything like that happened? So yeah, the mentality and the confidence in one another and the confidence in the plans that are being put in place are really contributing to making us a strong group at the moment.
Yeah, and that's detention for you, Andrew. But there was a question, Michael, about the fact that we've got 26 points of 22 games left, and whether or not that exceeded expectations. And he did say that again, and he's repeated this actually, saying that we've got no targets or objectives this season because of the new team in a new league. He said it's nothing to compare it to. But do you think, as the season goes on, do you think it slightly get more difficult to be that intense about every game if you've already got the points in the bag?
I don't think so with this squad, because I think you go through all the players in that squad, every single one of them has a point to prove, and I think they're just taking it game by game. And as Andrew said, it's the mentality of the team. I don't think they look too far ahead. Every game is taken each week, and I think they're just enjoying it and seeing how far it can take them, really, because it's quite a young squad, quite an ambitious team, so they'll want to prove themselves to finish as high as they can in the league. And we've got a lot of players like Xhaka and stuff. They won't let the standards drop whatsoever as the season goes on. As you're saying there, if we get to like 40 points, will we stop? I don't think the likes of Granit Xhaka would let that happen on the pitch. So I think the mentality is our strength, and I actually think as the season goes on, we might become more and more confident, more comfortable, and just take even bigger challenges and try finish as high as we can. So I won't be worried about that whatsoever in this team. And just another thing that Brees, like you see even from last year, is like we never get sort of too low or too high if we lose a game or win a game. We sort of just have that sort of happy medium, happy level. We're at the same consistent level all the time. So I think that's another strength we've brought this season into the Premier League from last year.
Yeah, you were nodding along there, Andrew, and just thinking about that point. I mean, is it possible that it might impact performance negatively, or can we just look at it as a purely positive thing because the confidence is so high?
Well, I couldn't agree more with what Michael said, and I don't think it will be a negative for us. The club and Labris are not going to come out and say something like, yeah, we are aiming for this, and this. But I think behind the scenes, I don't think relegation is a consideration. I don't think getting to 40 points or anything like that will be a case of job done, because I don't think that was the squad's job since it's been brought together. So many players in that group are used to winning titles or used to qualifying for Europe. They are not going to rest on their laurels just because we've got some magical number that they think will keep us safe. They'll probably not even notice it. I really do think Sunderland as a club, because of their history, and Sunderland as a fan base might have one eye on those three bottom spaces, but that's where it stops. None of the players are seeing us as battling relegation. I think mid-table is probably their minimum target, not 17th.
Yeah.
Maybe I could be wrong. I could be kidding myself, but that's how I view them as a team at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I've had too many years of pain to not look over my shoulder and look where the bottom three are.
But that's the point, Chris. You have and I have. But those players are lads who are used to being picked for international competitions and achieving things at the other end of the table. I think they have a completely different attitude to how us three and all the listeners will, because we're scarred by old Sunderland. This lot aren't old Sunderland. This lot is the new.
Yeah, massive scars, mate. Massive scars. But I think that's a good place for us to take a quick break before we get into some team news. So we'll be back very soon.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
Oh, Hilton stay. Your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
And welcome back to How We're the podcast, sponsored by LiveScore Bet. And as I said, we're going to get into some team news now because Tunisia confirmed everyone but Diarra had left the club for AFCON. But the big news was, Michael, that he will be with us at the weekend. And in the manager's words, he said this is the end of his rehab process before he heads off to AFCON. And I was reading an interview with Diarra last week, and he said when he did get injured in the first place, there was a couple of options that he could have went down. And I think although he didn't want to take that long, out injured, he took the option with the most time out to make sure it solved the injury permanently. So with that in mind, Michael, surely when you think that there's no way the club would have allowed him to rush back to be available for AFCON, would?
No, I don't think so. I think it was probably the right approach to take. I mean, we only signed him there in the summer, and you'd hate that if you kind of rushed him back and he got another injury and he'd miss most of the season. So hopefully you think that if we're keeping him, we're going to give him a bit of game time, and that could be beneficial for him going into AFCON. I can't see him starting tomorrow, but it's good to have a player like that back. Obviously, we've missed him. I kind of forget how good he was. I had to look back at a few clips from the start of the season, how well he actually had started with us, which is obviously complimentary to the likes of Sadiq, who've done so well in his absence. But it's brilliant to have him back. It's an opportunity to get some fitness tomorrow, and hopefully, depending on what happens with AFCON, we'll have him back fully fit coming into January.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew, I said a while back that actually with the timeline we were putting on it in terms of the club, I was going to be surprised if he did go to AFCON. And it's been touch and go. I think there's been lots of conversations in the background. You can almost see that the club and country have been talking to each other about him. Does look like he's going to go. And, that they said this weekend is almost like, in the manager's words, end of his rehab. So it's been interesting how we've managed this, and that he is, like, his first football back is likely not to be at AFCON.
It is a peculiar one, but if we look at it from the positive side, if he is slightly rusty and he needs a few games to get back up to speed, well, it's not our problem, is it? Do you know what I mean? He can make his mistakes and he can make his slack passes whilst not wearing a Sunderland shirt. Excuse me, sorry. AFCON was always going to have a bearing on players, but we had all of the conversations and we knew it was on the horizon. It's the timing is peculiar with Diarra though, because there has been this question mark about will he be ready, will he need to stay back on Weir side. It would have been a disaster, I think, if we'd said to him, "Oh no, you can't go and play for your country." This is what players dream of. They want to do that. So it's right that he's going, and rather than see it as an issue and see it as that we're potentially missing out on another month from him, see it as when he does come back to Sunderland and he is putting on a red and white shirt, by that point, he'll hopefully be 100% match fit and ready to go and in the right frame of mind to have a brilliant second half of the season with us.
Yeah. Well, the conversation then went on to players who haven't been involved as much, and, that'll become important. Dan Neil's name certainly came up, and I think Dennis Serkin's name came up as well. The manager also said we have no injuries at the moment, which was, of course, is a positive. But Michael, do you think that's almost been a deliberate plan so that those players are all fit and none of them are carrying knocks when it comes to this period when they're actually needed?
100%. Yeah, I'd say there was a lot of forward thinking here, knowing. I think we even as fans have been saying since the start of the season that it was the way it was going. It was very likely that you weren't probably going to see the likes of Neil and Rig and Sirkin until the AFCON kicked off. So yeah, I'd say the club are sort of planning, especially with Sirkin. It's been said that he's been probably fit nearly for another month, and he's had a couple of under 21 games, and he's been training the last fortnight or so with the first team. So I think with Sirkin, likes of Sirkin in mind especially, they've probably been holding him off, afraid that if he picked up an injury in the last couple of games, that had him out because he is prone to getting injured. So I say they were probably holding off keeping him until this kind of festive period. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of him now over the next fortnight, given there's 4 or 5 games in that window, especially.
Yeah, I mean, you were nodding along there, Andrew, and of course, there's you look at the likes of even Chris Rigg, you could put into that conversation. Mundell's been getting a few minutes. There's been question marks at certain times why Mayenda maybe hasn't been getting on late in certain games. Do you think that's been a deliberate plan, or do you think just that they've been out of favour and now they're needed?
I had Labris thought these players were ready to contribute, they would have played before now. But certainly in individual cases like Sirkin, it has been deliberate. I feel they've held him off until we've needed him. There are a few fringe players there. Dare I say it? Does Leo Hjelde even fancy his chances of a spot on the bench now? If he's available, he might think, well, I can cover a couple of positions. Give me a shot. These players, if there has been any unhappiness or disgruntlement that they've not featured before now, well, do your talking on the pitch and let's see it. It's no good just whinging, I haven't been given opportunities. Like you say, Mundell, Mayenda, Rigg are probably going to have some involvement. When they've played so far, they've looked good. Can you now take it on to the next level and make it so that when players come back and land back in the country, they've got to fight and they can't just walk into the team? However, let's see it, lads. Let's give it your best shot and show everyone what you can do.
Yeah, and certainly in the case of Dan Neil and Dennis Sirkin being out of contract at the end of the season, there's a shop window to put themselves into next month in January, isn't it? But moving on to the game today, which is, of course, a trip to the South Coast to take on Brighton and Hove Albion at 3:00. And interestingly, if you include friendlies, our last 6 fixtures against Brighton have all come at different grounds. Last time we played them was at the League Cup in 2011, which was the Farmer Stadium, now the X, of course. We played them in the Algarve in a friendly before that. It was the Withdean Stadium in 2005, Stadium of Light in 2004, the Goldstone Ground in 1992, and Roker Park in 1991. So this is our first league meeting at what is now the Amex Stadium. We've only played them once in the league in Brighton so far this century, and we were beaten 2-1. Our last league win against them at their place was in November 1989, when we came from behind to win 2-1 with goals from Mark Butterbean and Gary Hours. The last time we took them on in the top flight was at the Goldstone Ground, and this was September 1982. And they came back from 2 down to win 3-2. So Stan Cummins and Ali McCoist scored for the lads to put us 2 up, and they ended up winning 3-2. But let's talk a bit about Brighton, because we talked with Billy from wearebrighton.com the other day. And one thing he did say, Michael, was that he said they're a bit tired of the football world saying the bubble's going to burst. But Brighton, year after, I was interested to read that they've only had 4 managers since they came up, and one of those was Chris Hughton, who brought them up. But when they lose the likes of Graham Potter or De Zerbi or whoever it is, keep plucking out these managers and these players as well.
Yeah. Brighton sort of, to me, are a team that we should aspire to be over the next few years. And we have similar sort of models of how, the ownership and the recruitment, we kind of go for players that maybe a lot of the mainstream media don't know. But I mean, I think we should know by now not to listen to the mainstream media, given all the predictions they had about us at the start of the season. None of them seem to have a clue what we were going to do, and we've proved them all wrong. So I agree with them there. I won't be listening to anything that any of them say. But I think Brighton are a really good side. I mean, I did watch in Ireland. Actually, we have a Premier League game every week, and the Brighton Liverpool game was on last Saturday, so I was watching it. They've some really, really good players, especially going forward. And I think they deserve more credit than they get at times for the success they've had over the last few years. They've really become sort of a mainstay in that top 10 in the Premier League. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, because they seem to just kind of get the right players in after they sell anyone to Chelsea, and to get their manager choices right every time. So as I was saying, that's what we should be aspiring to be. And I've only got positive things to say about Brighton. I think they're a really, really good team.
Yeah, it was like Billy called Chelsea Brighton's feeder team,
Yeah.
which I thought was quite good. But yeah, Andrew, I mean, look, it's their ninth successive season, in the Premier League for Brighton. They finished in the top 10 3 out of the last 4 seasons, which is an unbelievable achievement. But it's no wonder, like Michael said, that the rest of football is looking at them in terms of how to recruit.
Yeah, it seems to work brilliantly for them. And those types of stats that you say in there, 3 top 10 finishes in the last 4, we can only dream of that. That's where Sunderland are hopefully heading. But we've not been there since the 50s in terms of consistent places in the top half. Their recruitment is fantastic. It's worked really well. It's giving the Brighton fans players they can enjoy watching, but also giving them security, knowing that all they need to do is sell 1 or 2, and that just keeps all the finances, keeps everything ticking over. So they are in a really good place. I'm interested. You said there, Michael, that you caught a bit of the game against Liverpool. I thought that was quite an interesting comparison, because we'd only just played Liverpool and we managed to get a point against them. So I was thinking, does that indicate we're in better form? Or was it just unlucky when they played at Anfield? Could they have justifiably got a point, or did Liverpool beat them convincingly, would you say?
Oh, well, I mean, Liverpool got I think the first goal came after a minute, didn't it? So that sort of had them on the back foot straight away. But after that, they were on top. I think they missed a lot of chances. They kind of sat back and caught them on the counter a lot, but they missed 3 or 4 really decent chances. One thing about them is that they are quite open at the back, from what I could see. I mean, it just seems that they trade off their sort of defending for their attack and play, which, looking at just the last few results, I think they had some big defeats against United and Villa. They conceded 4. So they are definitely a really strong team going forward, but at the back, they will give away chances. But and on a different day, that game at Anfield, they definitely could have taken something from it, 100%.
Yeah. Just like I say, interesting, because you could compare with our performance, and you couldn't say that about Sunderland against Liverpool. We were never wide open. So, interesting.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, that of course was on the road, and they've only lost once at home this season, which was against Aston Villa. And their last home game, again, talking to Billy from wearebrighton.com, was against West Ham United on the 7th of December. He said that was their worst performance of the season, which was their last home game against West Ham. I think they would have been expecting 3 points from that game. But yeah, again, just looking at Brighton, Michael, and if a few teams were played this season where this kind of comes into the conversation, you can even throw Fulham or maybe Palace into this conversation. It seems a bit of a recurring theme, and one I think Andrew touched on that we might actually have to solve ourselves, because it does seem to get difficult when you have these years finishing in mid-table in the Premier League, maybe just inside that top 10, and then you have to stick or twist, because getting to that next stage is so difficult. And there's a handful of teams in the same boat trying to work out this at the moment. And it's kind of it's a real tough one, isn't it? When you're in this position, do you take the risks spend big, try to break that top 5, top 6, whatever it is? Or do you just say, well, actually, if we spend, and if you look at Brighton, they spent 70 million in the summer, which again, in the opposition preview, he said this was the first time they've really splashed out. Do you take that risk and try and get onto that next level, or do you say, actually, this is almost our ceiling of where we are?
Yeah, and I heard you mention yesterday, I think it was yourself, it seems really hard to break that top 6. There seems to be 5 or 6 teams in that kind of 7 to 12 position there that I sort of wondering if we can get Conference League or can we go higher. I mean, yeah, it's sort of, it depends on the ambition of the club, I suppose, and the finances each club has. Brighton obviously did spend big in the summer, but if you look at what they buy probably a lot of young lads, including obviously Tommy Watson, and they're probably just hoping now over the next couple of years, these lads, they'll give them a chance to develop and see where they go from there, and hopefully sell them on for bigger money. But it's just, you're competing with the finances of some of the bigger clubs, and it's very, very hard to break that ceiling. I mean, you look at ourselves, what would we want to be in 5 or 6 years' time? Is probably where they are, just safe in mid-table, because it's going to be very hard to get any further than that, really, unless you get, like that team up the road that get maybe just the country to sponsor you and spend all your money.
Oh, don't get Andrew onto that topic. We haven't got that amount of time, I tell you. We haven't got that amount of time for Christmas, never mind before the game. But just on that topic, Andrew, because it does seem, it is a flaw in the English game, isn't it? And I think, I've said it before, I think we're a breath of fresh air in the Premier League this season. And it's already been mentioned. I think I can't remember which pundit said it, but it was like, oh, well, it's the first season there. Like, in some ways, sometimes when you have this first season, your biggest challenge is always the second and third season. But how do you see that for clubs like Brighton, like maybe Fulham, like Palace, and like I said, hopefully when we get in that position as well?
Well, I think before we're in that position, we need to make sure we can walk. We don't want to run before we can walk. And yeah, Brighton, just touching back on that stat from earlier, they've got the top 10 finishes now and are knocking on that glass ceiling. We think we're there, but we're not quite there. It is a difficult balance, but listen, Crystal Palace, their fans are enjoying things at the moment because they were able to win a trophy, and you maybe set your sights differently, and it would be foolish to start demanding Sunderland were winning every trophy going. But why can't we look at winning a couple of cups along the way? You've just got to base your expectations at a reasonable level. I might be about to say something that gets me into a lot of hot water. I'll say it anyway, though. Could we potentially have a higher ceiling because of our supporter numbers, the size of the ground? Fulham, Crystal Palace, Brighton, they're really good clubs. They're doing really well, and the people that support them love them just as much as we love Sunderland. But they're getting mid-20s, 30,000. Sunderland have got 46,000 coming through the gates every other week at the moment. There's already people saying we should be looking to expand. Does that maybe set us apart potentially and mean we have further growth we could make? Or am I just being big-headed there?
Where are they based, though? That's the thing, I suppose, isn't it? What player wants? They like to live in London. They'll be asking their wives where they want to live and stuff. That's always comes into it as well for certain players. But
it does for some, but some players, I mean, look at Granit Xhaka. Granit Xhaka there is absolutely loving playing for this club and for this supporter base. I could just be a hippie and just looking at things pie in the sky, but
I know you're right. Yeah,
we might have an advantage there that we can use to do even more in the long term.
Yeah. Well, you might have just done Brighton's team talk there. Sunderland are a bigger club than Brighton.
I've never said that.
The dressing room. Just quickly, Michael, because obviously, and the manager was asked about this in the press conference. Tommy Watson, of course, we sold to Brighton in the summer. Of course, we're almost talking about Sunderland in the way we are because of his, his cool moment in the, it kept his head when everyone else was losing theirs, especially Kiefer Moore. But he's only had 2 substitute appearances so far this season in the Premier League, and the manager was asked Said, do you think you'll be playing against you? And he went, I don't know. And basically, that was it. Moved on. But I'm sure. Look, if he comes on, he'll get some reception from the Sunderland fans, won't he?
Oh, I hope so. I really hope so, because look, obviously there was a lot of sort of animosity last year after the move was sort of completed in January, and you were still with us. I remember being at a couple of the games. I think it was Blackburn, maybe at home in April last year, and there was a bit of booing going on when he came on. But look, he's given me my best moment as a Sunderland fan, one of my best moments in my lifetime. So nothing but respect for me for what he did for us. I mean, we should all be so thankful. That goal has put us in the position that we're in now, and I'd be fully sure that all the Sunderland fans today will give him the reception he deserves, because that goal will go down in history books. Like, he has a mural in the city now, which he really deserves. You never know. You never know. He might turn up back at us someday in the next few years anyway. He's still that young. So, yeah, you wouldn't know if he come on. I think he's struggling with an injury the last few weeks. I'm not sure if he's going to be back in the squad today, but if he is, I'm sure the Sunderland fans will give him the reception he deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we leave Brighton, Andrew, a couple of players I wanted to quickly mention. And I think Michael said Tommy Watson struggling with a knock. I think from the latest, Danny Welbeck might be struggling with a knock. We're not sure if he's going to rock up in the starting 11 for Brighton, but he's been a fantastic signing for Brighton. And the other player I wanted to mention to you was Jason Steele, who Billy from wearebrighton.com said he's a bit of a cult hero down there.
Cult hero, you said there, because I think he's described as something else by some fans. Listen, I've got no problems with Jason Steele. He was brought into an absolute mess of a club. I thought you were going to mention Lewis Dunk, because I'm pretty sure he's suspended, and that would be a nice little bonus for us.
Yeah.
If Welbeck is unavailable, that also would be a huge fill-up for us, because we've all seen him play for Sunderland. We know the potential he had. He's since gone on to have a really good Premier League career, and now he's having this fantastic Indian summer. People are talking about him going to the World Cup. That's the level he's performing at. So whilst it would be nice to reconnect with some familiar faces, I don't think people would be too upset if Welbeck doesn't feature. You're talking about Watson there getting a good reception. I mean, Sunderland fans at the moment are more than happy with players from other clubs helping us out. So, Watson probably would get a good reception. In all seriousness, though, the mood at Brighton isn't brilliant from what I can gather. That West Ham game, I don't know if it was horrific weather or what, but there were a couple of pockets of sections in the stand where the fans hadn't filled their seats. Tony Bloom apparently is getting himself into all sorts of arguments. I heard recently he banned reporters from The Guardian because they commented on some ongoing investigations into his business practices. So listen, if we turn up, Danny Welbeck's out. There's gripes perhaps with the owner. The fans are maybe feeling a little bit unsure because they have just thrown in the worst performance of the season in their last game. That's music to our ears. We're buzzing at the moment, so let's see if we can capitalise on that and use our positive mind frame against their potentially awkward position and see if we can make the most of it.
Yeah, that's it. And I think if Danny Welbeck is out, he's top scorer on 7 goals in the Premier League. And I'm pretty sure Diego Gomez might be out as well.
He's suspended as well, yeah.
He's suspended. So then if you look at their top scorers, they're the only 2 who aren't defenders who have scored more than 1 this season. So obviously that's going to be a bonus if they're almost the 2 players who were getting goals from forward positions are out. But look, before we get into the Sunderland team, look, we love the Derby win, of course, but it's going back to a slight conversation we had earlier, Michael. There was, again, there was a bit of frustration about the fact we failed to get the ball into the box in that first half against Newcastle, and maybe our lack of creativity in general because we had so much of the ball. Going forward into this, Michael, do you think that sort of discussion goes out of the window a bit because we're approaching this period with so many changes to the side during AFCON.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting sort of how the team lines up with the changes we make. You probably have a better judge of how we sort of are going to play after 3 or 4 games of this, but it is probably something we need to improve on. I obviously was saying earlier, we've scored a lot of goals away from home. At home. It's away from home. We probably struggled a little bit more. But we obviously get into the team. But there's going to be opportunities for players that I'm sure have a point to prove, and you're kind of hoping that they'll bring that sort of aggression and intensity to get the ball moving quick. And I obviously was listening to someone say through the week that Xhaka was screaming at people in the first half of that Newcastle game to up the tempo. So you wouldn't know if it was just a bit of nerves or something last week in the Derby game. But I'm sure from that we'll be pushing on. As I just said, this is a good opportunity to get a result. So I think there will be a kind of a improvement, say, in the attacking area from the last game anyway.
Yeah, well, look, let's get into it because I know as listeners you can't see, but every time the other person is speaking, the other one is frantically scribbling down, I think, what they think that the starting 11 is going to be. And there's been a lot of crossing out, Andrew, by the looks of it.
Chris, I'll be honest, that last note I've written down is about this long list of Christmas jobs I've got to do. As we've been speaking, I've had a text message reminding me that there's something else we've forgotten to sort. So I'm just thinking if I don't write this down now, it's going to be horrific. Prior to that, though, yes, I have been really pulling my hair out over who's going to start because it's a tough call this week.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, and here's me thinking you live and breathe Sunderland FC, but clearly not if you're going through the jobs you're going to do. And do not on the back of a fag packet. I think Benson or Hedges is going to be up front. I don't know which one. But look, let's get into it because everyone's second guessing where the manager's going to go with his starting 11. Look, and let's focus, starting off at the back because, of course, it's going to be Roofs in goal. That's a given. But we'll start with you, Andrew, because, look, the starting point is going to be if it's a back 4 or back 5 because that's almost going to give us clues for everything else. So if we focus on the defence first, what do you think he's going to go with based on the personnel he's got, Andrew, at the back? Do you think he's going to go with a 4 or a 5?
I think he goes for a back 4. I think Ronaldo will be a big miss. But we've had this type of discussion before. If you've got to make a really important change, Lebris doesn't like to complicate matters even further by then throwing 2 or 3 other things into the mix. So we had a back 4 against Newcastle that did really well. I cannot think of Newcastle having a clear-cut chance in the game. The back 4 worked well, were rock solid, really dependable. So it's probably easier to just switch one like-for-like player out than start making a whole load of other changes. So for me, I would expect to see it a flat back 4.
Okay, so start us off then, Andrew, very quickly. Who's going to be the 4?
Mukiele, Ballard, Alderete, and I think Sirkin comes in for his Premier League debut. I think the club still think there's a player in there and want to give him an opportunity before we know what happens with his contract.
Okay, just before I thought of Michael, so ahead of Hume on the left, you'd prefer a left footer?
Yeah, listen, I love Trey Hume, and Trey Hume does, as we move through the team, I think there is a space for Trey Hume. But that's another factor as well. When you have Trey Hume at left back, it does sometimes impact the balance of the team, and Sirkin can help negate that issue.
Okay, interesting, Michael. Are you going, or do you want to? I don't know do you want to tell us what you might do and what you think the manager's going to do, whether they're different or not?
Yeah, I agree a lot with Andrew there. I think he'll go with a back 4. I can't see why he would change too much after the defensive performance last week. The only change I have is Hume. I think Hume will start ahead of Sirkin. I think for a couple of reasons. I think firstly he'll probably trust Hume more at left back in comparison to Sirkin, and also I don't know if it's the game to bring Sirkin into, because obviously one of Brighton's strengths is their wingers in Minta and Matoma. I don't know if that's just a baptism of fire for Sirkin on his Premier League debut. I think he'll just trust Hume more in that position, in spite that the balance might be a bit off with a right footer left back. I think he'll go with him.
Okay, full house for the back four. Michael, I'll let you start off in midfield. Who do you think is going to go alongside Xhaka, basically?
Yeah, I think he'll go with a three of Gertrude, Xhaka and Lefay. I think Gertrude seems to be the man that comes in whenever there's sort of an absent. He's like the first substitute in the back in the defence or the midfield, and I think he probably is the next man up, sort of. So I don't think there will be a lot of changes there. Again, I think he trusts him over the likes of Dan Neil and Chris Rigg, so I think he'll come in there.
Okay, interesting. And that would also, by putting Gertrude alongside Xhaka, it also gives them the option of changing to a back five, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah, and that's I have the team out listed here, and I just says it depends really. Will you go 5 or 4? Because you could still obviously put him into central defence as well. So I think the lineup sort of in my head that kind of the back line and the midfield sort of it's going to be those lads. It's just whether they go into a 5 or a 4, but they'll change in the game as well. I'm sure as well sometimes.
Interesting. And Andrew, so Michael's gone Gertrude, Xhaka and Lefay in the middle. Who would you go for?
Well, it's tricky because I haven't actually written them down in positions. I've written them down in a list because from this point,
I'm going to get Johnny onto your mind.
Yeah.
In squad number order, is it?
Yes, it's in squad number order. I've got Roofs down in spot number 10, I think, wearing shirt number 22. I agree with what you're both saying about the players that I think he'll go for can end up doing different positions and doing different roles as the game moves on. So I think at some point it'll be a 4-4-2, but I can also see the quote midfielders I've picked maybe moving into a forward 3. So I think you're dead right about Gertrude. He comes into the team, he's got a good engine on him. He can perhaps fill some of the void in terms of work rate that's going to be there because of Siddiqui. By the way, as well, I think Siddiqui is going to be a miss, not just in terms of football ability, but he seems like a right character.
Yeah.
Like he's always laughing and joking on. I wonder, hopefully somebody else can step up and just mean that the mood's not too flat around the team. But yeah, Gertrude as a player comes in for me. I think we'll have a kind of nominal 4 across midfield with Xhaka and Gertrude in the middle, Adingra on the left, and Hume kind of being on the right, but a bit like how he was against Liverpool, where he'll sometimes move more centrally. He might help in defence. As I think it was Michael said, Brighton are quite dangerous on the wings, so he might help strengthen up in that sense. But yeah, whilst it's a 4, like I say, it's almost written as a list, and they'll be doing all sorts of different jobs.
Well, just going off on a tangent very quickly, because the manager was actually asked about Siddiqui, and is he going to be a miss off the pitch? And it was quite interesting because Register seemed to stamp on it a little bit, because I think he seemed to think, almost that Siddiqui's being presents himself potentially on social media or whatever he's a joker and all this. And the manager said he's not like that all the time. He listens, he works hard, and he picks his moments to be like that. So I think he kind of pulled it back a little bit and said, he's not that type of character that I think. But I think you are right in terms of him being, he does play football with a smile, and I think Michael is in a similar boat to that they don't get bogged down in too many things on the pitch. But Michael, just moving on to those wide areas, and I'll let you go first with who you think he's going to go with up top as well.
Well, again, so I kind of had it written down as a 4-3-3 in my sheet here. Will I give you the 3 up top?
Yep.
Yeah, I've Adingra. I think Isidore will start, and I think Mundell will be on the other side as well.
Interesting. You've both gone for Adingra, and this is his big chance, isn't it?
100%, yeah. And I think for a couple of reasons. Obviously, it's against his old team, but also he obviously was left out of it, the AFCON squad for the Ivory Coast, and it's the opportunity to sort of prove himself. I mean, it's been a bit of a slow start for him. He obviously started the season as first choice against West Ham, but it just seems seems that he hasn't settled, or I don't know, is it a bit of work rate or something that's missing? He has so much talent, and I think there's a huge player in there for us. But I think this is his chance now to sort of stamp his sort of position in the team, and no better way to start than against his former club that let him go in the summer. So I'm expecting a big game from Adingra tomorrow.
Yeah, just quickly on that, Michael, because
Today, I should say.
Billy from We Are behind the curtain there, from Billy from We Are Brighton.com, he talked about Adingra and said he wasn't kind of devastated that he left and thought they got really good money from him, but at the same time, he said we all thought there's a player there, but he said bizarrely, I mean, talking about like Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz or something, that he said he almost kind of needs a footballing brain. He said he's got all the talent, he's got the pace, he's got all the, but he said he just didn't, he seemed to not quite get it in terms of what he needed to do on that final stage when he was in the final third of the ball.
Yeah, and no better coach than Lebris, hopefully, to bring that out in him. So it might take him a few months to maybe settle, and you're hoping now. I think I've listened to Lebris speak about him, and he speaks fairly positively about him over the last few weeks times, and he obviously seems to rate him. So you're just hoping that now, after a couple of months here, he'll settle and start understanding how we want to play. I was at Old Trafford there in October, and he was whipped obviously after half an hour, and you could just see that he wasn't doing what the coach was asking him to do, and he was maybe not tracking back at times, and you're just hoping that he's learned from that sort of slow start he's had, and he'll kind of kick on in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I think everyone can tell I've got a daughter, and Wicked has been on the agenda for far too many weeks. I'd like to not think about the Wizard of Oz and all that sort of stuff. But Andrew, who did you say was going to be up top? Because look, he's swapped between Isidore and Broby in certain games, and I think he does look at who they're going to be up against. You know, whether he thinks Isidore can play off the shoulder and get in behind, or whether he thinks he needs a Broby to hold the ball up and get us out a little bit. Who do you think he's going to go for on this one?
Well, again, I think Lefay starts, but again, at times he'll be almost acting as a second forward, but at other times I can see him dropping further back. Lefay was said before, his work rate's phenomenal. He's another one who'll be helping fill some of the loss felt by Siddiqui. By the way, that was really interesting what you said about Siddiqui, and Lebris was saying that when he needs to be serious, he is serious. That means he's gone up another level, in my opinion. It also suggests that we are looking at everything when we're recruiting. This lad does seem like a bit of a happy-go-lucky fella, but he's got a bit of maturity about him as well. So that's a side issue that was really nice to hear. But yeah, Lefay will at some points be helping out in midfield. And at some points, I think he'll be pushing up alongside Brian Broby. I can fully understand why people want Isidore back in the team. That chance he created for himself against the Visitors, where he chested the ball down and fired off a volley, that was superb technique. And we don't have many players who can create something from nothing like that. He'll shoot no matter where he is on the pitch. However, Broby, for me, will just do a bit more of the other type of work we need at the start of the game and create a platform for Isidore to then come on. That's how I envisage it. But I wouldn't be opposed to Isidore starting, for example.
Yeah, but I think it's an absolute toss of a coin between those two at the moment. But one player I did want to mention, Michael, because neither of you have got him in the starting 11, and earlier in the season, he was getting, he was named in the starting 11 a few times. But Chris Rigg, I mean, he was almost earmarked for this AFCON period to say, right, well, this is where he's going to get a lot of minutes. And just looking, it was just interesting that neither of you have got him in the starting 11.
Yeah, I mean, conceivably, I think today he could get minutes on the pitch, and he was probably the next man up that I thought he would start. But I think, again, this is going to be a great opportunity for him to get into the team over the next few weeks. Obviously, we've Leeds next week as well, which at home, which might be a game that might suit to bring some of those lads in against a team they might be somewhat familiar with. Rigg's still so young. I mean, he's so young, and he's going to get plenty of opportunities. I wouldn't be too worried about him. And again, this is a learning experience for him. He might have not expected to be in the Premier League as quick as he is, has got in. So, you could argue another way he might have benefited with another season of us if we were in the Championship. But I think he'll get his chance, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the team over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Just to bring you in on that one, Andrew, the Chris Rigg debate, because like I said, it'd be interesting to hear what you've got to say, because he's in neither of your starting 11s. But the other one that you didn't put in was Romain Mundle. Michael did. It does seem to me on the Romain Mundle side that these minutes that he's been given in games just seem to be building up to something.
It is building up, and had we been sat down talking about the game in 2 or 3 weeks, Mundle probably would be higher up in my thoughts for starting. No problem with the idea of Mundle getting more minutes for us. He's done well so far. He's got a bit of pace about him, which is always going to worry teams. And yeah, just because Rigg, I don't think necessarily starts in this game, I am by no means writing him off. He has a massive part to play for us in the coming games. He can do a couple of different jobs. Whenever he's played in the Premier League so far, he's done really well. I'm not sure it's quite the time for him. And hey, maybe it would be one of those when the game's won after 70 minutes and we're cruising, you know how it goes, like Sunderland always do what you expect them to do. When we're cruising, we can sling him on there and he can get a bit more experience for himself.
Yeah, one more name I wanted to throw out there, Michael, last one, because it is a strange thing that, you could come after the Sheffield United game, he was the name on everybody's lips who couldn't stop chanting about him, but Eliza Mayenda. Now, we've said all these players are out. It's chances for this player, this player, this player. None of us have mentioned Eliza Mayenda. He can play wide, he can play up front. Hasn't been mentioned, and he's got to be frustrated after the season he had last year.
Yeah, and the start he had to the season this year against West Ham. I sort of feel a little bit sorry for him that I think he's been punished massively for the missed chance he had against Burnley in the second game of the season. He hasn't really been seen since, and obviously, it's unfortunate for him, but we have Broby and Eastor as well, who've done really well up top, and obviously the way we play, we only play with one centre forward, so he is obviously probably the third choice at the moment out of those three. He's more likely to get a few more opportunities on the wing over the next few weeks, and again, I'm sure we'll see him on the pitch over the next couple of weeks. It's just going to be taking your chance, but he's still another young player in the team who's finding his feet in the Premier League, and I think the more experience he gets over the next while, he will get better, but it's just probably tough for him at the moment, given the form of the lads that are in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, let's get into the game itself, and I'd like some predictions, of course, but I also want to know what type of game you think it'll be, because, as I said in the opposition preview, there's a lot of talk about Brighton being very slow with the ball in terms of being in possession and taking their time, which I think sometimes might be a good thing for Sunderland. But how do you think it'll play out, Andrew?
Well, I think Brighton will, as usual, try and use the wings to get at us. I'm not too concerned about famous last words. I realise I'm tempting fate here, but I think we just look so solid defensively. Even if you do get past our fullbacks and you cross a ball into the box, I think we can cope with it. We don't need to panic. I think we just need to let them kind of knock themselves out. There's perhaps a bit more pressure on Brighton than there is on us. So see what they've got to say for themselves, let them tire themselves out, and then that's when we look to try and move the ball forwards and catch them out at the back. That's me feeling anyway.
Yeah. Get a prediction?
Oh, yeah. Either 0-0 or 1-0 to Sunderland.
Oh, a tight one. Michael, how do you think it'll play out?
Yeah, I think obviously we're coming into this game today on the back of last week, and the momentum's huge and the feel-good factor around Everton. It's obviously just for us to try keep that up. I expect this fairly solid performance like last week. I do think Brighton will go at us early, and I wouldn't be shocked if we go a goal down, but I have a feeling the way the game goes on, they're missing a few players. Obviously, Dunk for them is a huge loss at the back. I think we could catch them on the break a couple of times, so I'm going to go for 2-1 to us.
Oh, feeling positive. Neither predict a Sunderland defeat, of course. So according to the lads, we're gonna get something on the south coast this afternoon. So I think that's a. Oh, go on, Andrew.
Well, Chris, fair's fair. What do you fancy? What do you think's going to happen?
Well, my prediction will be in the matchday preview, which Michael has given out. I haven't written yet because I'm gonna go. I don't think we'll concede, so I'm gonna go for a 1-0. I think we're gonna nick it. I think the way they keep the ball sounds like it plays into our hands, and we'll catch them on the break after 70 minutes. At any point after 70 minutes, pick a minute. I don't care, but I think we're gonna nick it. And I think I don't think they're in the best place after that West Ham game. So we've got a full house of either victories or Andrew slipped in a little 0-0 there. So we'll see how it plays out. But on that positive note, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for your time, Andrew. Always a pleasure, mate.
Yes, it is. It is always a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the game, everyone.
Good stuff. And Michael, absolutely brilliant to have you on, mate.
Thanks, Chris. Really enjoyed that. Thanks, Andrew.
Good stuff. And thanks again, everyone, for listening. Don't forget, we'll have immediate reaction after the final whistle at the Amex with a pod that should drop soon after, so don't miss that. We'll also have all the reaction on the Rugby Report website, so look out for that as well. But from us, it's bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.